pleasure to partner with you and with all our, our coaches, aspiring coaches on the call in raising topics of interest. And our favorite topic is the who of the client, right? And a few months ago, you and I had a chat and said, let's talk about the what of the client, which is how the entire focus of this webinar started to evolve and emerge into different areas of the topic. You go ahead. I'm sure you want to say some things to frame the session. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just listening to you, Cindy, and that's a nice way you framed it. And I must say thank you, Cindy, for building on that conversation that we could take this in a more public space. Well, it's a kind of private public space because there are coaches on the call, and there is that sense of comfort in exploring this in the way it should be. So like Cindy was saying, we often talk about the two parts of the client, which is the what and the who. But I think there is a place where they converge, and it has to. So I think while I think the theme of the session still says what clients want in coaching, I would like to frame it as not as a limited sort of what, but what do they really want from coaching when they sign up with a coach, or they're thinking of signing up with a coach? What's really that people are looking for? And obviously there is no one answer. And the whole idea of this conversation is to bring in perspectives, points of view, some experiences, and also make it a more interactive session, because everybody, whether you come in here as a coach or a client, you have something in your mind. Otherwise, you would not be here in this space. So that's opening remarks from me.
And coaches, if you're wondering how come today's webinar is an open webinar, not the normal closed format, we would like to do this from now on, open the Masters in Coaching webinar, meaning you can directly interact, give your comments. We can have small groups of practice or exploration or just talking to each other, just making it a more interactive space. We'll try this and we'll see how this works and which one is better, the other or this, and we may just interact with both or engage with both. But we want to do something more interactive and engage personally with you on the webinar. And I thought we'd do a dive in, Vijay, like, just go into, when we talk about this what of coaching, and I'll dive into a particular space of the what. How does this what shape coaching? Like, we all know the role of the who, the client, and whatever they bring and however they show up. But what about this what? There are a few areas in which the what shapes coaching. It's more like a compass for the coaching process. It helps both the coach and the client in a few particular points. One is defining the session focus, and of course, drawing on from many aspects, like the larger purpose for the client within that small goal that they're working on. So this what will, number one, define a session focus. The what also helps to track the progress, of what the client wants. By understanding this what, both the coach and the client measure the progress, success indicators of a session, and the overall coaching agreement. And the third part I want to add in here is that the what, how it serves as a compass, also helps maintain the alignment of this coaching relationship and how it remains client focused throughout the session and the coaching intervention. So I thought I'll just frame that, what is this what we are talking about within a coaching space? Vijay?
Yeah, I love that. Love the way you've brought in the example of a compass. And I would invite all our participants here to maybe put in the chat box what what metaphors come to your mind when you think of the what in coaching, because that's a nice way to sort of visualize what this is all about. But I want to just take a slightly different stab at this and talk from our example, experience. And when I mean us, it's not just me and Cindy, but everyone here. What could be understood as what are the kind of themes that clients bring to coaching? They have something in mind. Yeah. Usually people don't walk into a coaching room with nothing in mind, except, of course, if it's peer coaching, where people run out of topics after a point of time. But I think real life clients come in with some expectation. And I call these the contexting themes. Now, this may or may not show up as coaching goals. Yeah, it's a frame of reference, because if you really look at ICF core competencies, one of the important things is to understand the entirety of the client. While what we see on the surface is the topic, there is just so much more that makes the client who they are. Yeah, values, beliefs, systems they come from, worldviews, they bring all of that. And in a manner of speaking, the what, I think, touches upon all of that. And it gives a frame of reference with which the client sort of walks into a role. Let's kind of look at this as somebody who is walking into a store. Yeah. Obviously, there's that little thing they want, but if they're spending longer in the store and they're just looking around, there are broad needs that they have. And they come in hoping to throw that net. Now, some of it shows up as items you buy, which are actually the coaching goals. So that's the way I look at it. And this took me a while to actually figure this out, saying that, there may be topics that they bring in, but there's a lot more they're carrying with them in their mind space and their being space into the session, for which they may or may not want answers from coaching. And it's very important as coaches to be able to understand that entirety. Otherwise, you are just solving for one slice of the problem that they're bringing in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very significant point about this totality of the client or this old person, and with all these systems around them and the various dynamics they are working with, context, culture, whatever it is.
Yeah. So just to build on that, Cindy, so what do I mean by that, right? Typically, let's say a large frame of reference or a contexting theme that, that I see often, especially with leaders, is well-being. So irrespective of what goal they bring in, a business problem to solve, or, a career decision or issues with the team, it all in one way or the other goes back to that theme of well-being. Now, they may not have thought of working with a coach on this theme, but as a coach, it's very important to unpack and understand. And you may, of course, choose to contract, and you may choose to respect one another and say, yeah, we're not going there. But I think it's important to understand, because that's the larger what within which all of this works. So if you know somebody is on a well-being journey, that exploration, that's the big theme running in their life. Or it could be, for example, relationships. That could be the big theme running in their life. And then there are little themes that they bring in. It just enables you so much better as a coach to partner in a meaningful way, with sensitivity, with understanding, with empathy. And all of the things we talk about, trust, safety that we build, the foundational competencies, all of this comes from just understanding and appreciating that what.
Absolutely. Coaches, you want to join us, feel free to do that. And Vijay invited a question around what are your what's, or what do you think are some of your clients' what's in coaching? Feel free to use chat box or directly chat with us. And while you frame that, Vijay, the what's sometimes come, like in corporate coaching, comes with the what's of the company, the client's what's,
Yeah.
and they merge. Yeah. Or the way we coach helps them integrate both.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
You have some thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was, in fact, also going to suggest that, in my experience, I think a lot of a lot of coaching falls into two broad buckets, yeah, thematically. I think one is self-funded clients. They kind of know what they want somewhat, right? And they think that they're trusting you entirely to really sort of work with them to whatever they want. And then there is, of course, the sponsored kind of client, where there are many other dynamics. There are many other people invested in that process. And for those of you who are in this executive coaching space, many times the what's that are given to you in a context setting call, or an initial call with a sponsor, or whatever you want to call that, could be far away from the important what's that the client wants to bring in. And I think the role of a coach is really important to find a point of integration within a larger theme, which is why the larger theme becomes important, right? So, and there the larger theme could even be the cultural context within which all of this is happening, the business context. And so context is everything. If you ask me, that's what I feel like saying, right? One line summary. Context is everything when it comes to what?
Coaches, you want to add anything? Anyone?
I'll jump in if you like. For those
Yeah,
who don't know me, I'm Dave.
Hi, Dave.
The things I found out are there's usually a mask in the coaching session. And so the client says something, but the reality is behind that. So you really have to go through the initial issue to get to the deeper issue. And so that idea of understanding that there may be much deeper issues behind the words coming out of their mouth, and taking that journey to get to those words rather than the words that are presented.
Yeah, absolutely. And many times, you only get to the deeper essence after a fair amount of exploring. The more trust is cultivated, the depth of coaching begins to show up, and the more shows up from the client.
Yeah. Adora, I know your hand is raised, but I just want to add a little bit of I won't call it a contra perspective, but I just want to build on what David has said. That's absolutely right. And I agree with that. Some people call it peeling off layers and, other metaphors. But the one thing that I want to call out here is sometimes we get to that, right? We get to that core, the real sort of dynamics, the real issues, the real stuff that is important. But I think the coaching relationship, and I think that's where that line gets drawn, is as much as, and I have experiences in all vulnerability, I'm sharing this, right? I can hear the client, right? In session 2, I know exactly, or I think I know, right? My inner sense is telling me, oh, this is what it is. I mean, the client's sort of going everywhere, but I can see this, what you can't see. Maybe I'm seeing from outside, right? Being very honest about this. And yet it's very important, even assuming that the client comes there and you get there and, you both have this discovery, that it is the client's choice to allow you there. And sometimes as coaches, and I found this temptation. We want to get into more transformational stuff, right? Deeper stuff, etc. But sometimes all the client wants is to clear the cobwebs around, the clutter. And they don't want you on that journey. So it's very important to rein yourself in and respect that. And this is, again, something that, comes, I think this is something that you practice. You sort of start believing that this is the client's journey at the end of the day. So as much as I can feel for it, as much as I can even raise that, as a topic, the choice is always. And this happened as recently as last week. I had one client who told me, I know you can sense that I'm struggling here. But, I don't want you, or, it was said very directly, right? I don't remember the words. I mean, it sort of stung me for a bit, but then I kind of calmed myself down. And it was not about me, right? I mean, anybody else in that position may not have had the invitation. So I think you need the invitation to go any place in coaching as far as the client's journey is concerned. And that's the best you can do. So the client told me that I know this, and I know this is critical. I know this is not in its place. And I know you know that as well. But I don't want you to go there. Beautiful.
That's a very valid point. Absolutely.
And in your face, straight. One of the rare times that has happened. Usually clients, and that's why I call the client coaching dynamic a little bit of imbalance of power. And it's very important as coaches to understand when you're in an imbalanced relationship, it's even more important to be understanding. It's even more important to be respectful. But there are some clients, so a lot of clients would play along, and just to sort of, because they know that you're onto something, they're onto something, they'll even play along with you. But that's not what we want, right? Because it's their journey, and that's a choice that they have to make.
Yep. Adora, dive in.
Thank you so much. I really love that point. And I think that it sort of takes the heavy lifting of us as coaches. The client may not want us to go there. So we just need to appreciate and value that. Thank you. So I was going to ask about the what, where there is an alignment between the coach and the coachee and the sponsor. And then the course of the engagement, another what emerges that is not in alignment with what had been initially contracted, three-way. And I'm just curious to know how that is managed to respect the sponsor, but at the same time, to respect the client. So just curious to know thoughts around it. Thank you.
You want to go first, Cindy?
I can. Do you want to? Some burning thoughts with you? Go ahead.
After you.
Okay. Adora, exactly how you said it, I would propose that or invite the client into that conversation. It seems like something is emerging that was not in our initial contract. And I'd like to have a conversation with you on how to manage that. How do we manage that or work with that? Yeah. And I partner with the client to unpack that very process of how we are going to work with that newly emerged piece. Because there may be some ways it's tied to the initial goal or not, right? But either way, it's a partnered conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. Beautiful.
Nice, Cindy. Yeah, I mean, that's a very respectful way to do that, respecting all parties in the contract. So again, this is something I do practically, and I think it works. Early on, it used to give me a lot of stress when, I would even feel a little not good about it, because I feel like, hey, am I doing the wrong thing here? I mean, is one party sort of getting out of this whole thing? But it's so important to understand that, if you really ask me, there is a pecking order of sorts, right? In that session as a coach, there is your primary client, who's the one who's across you. And I call the sponsor or anybody else as the secondary client. And I don't just call this, but I make this clear to the sponsor even at the start of the engagement. I would say that, there are themes that would come in, because when I coach, we go far beyond the topic. And that choice to share what is happening and how much we're deviating or how much we're not will rest with the client. And I try to have a three-way call where I call this out openly. So there are sponsors who are uncomfortable, who push back. But that's a dialogue to be had between the client and the reporting manager, or the client and the sponsor. It's not a dialogue to be had with me as a coach. I can't be deciding that. And once, we ensure that the onus of sort of managing, like Cindy said, right? Managing this entire process, the transition, going away, or anything else, right? Is on the primary client. And when I try to do that, it just gets a lot more respectful for everyone in the system. And the other way I also gently do it is, I would at least have maybe 1 or 2 check-ins, which are part of the whole program. And this check-in becomes very important while I create a space, and that's my role. The entire journey, the progress, whatever wants to be done is the client's role. So what I would do, like Cindy would do, is maybe I would not immediately say it, but I would actually kind of then say, it seems like there are a few things that we may want to bring up in the check-in, and talk about this. How would you want to do it? So it's not so much about would you want to do it, but it's about how you would want to do it, because that's part of the initial contracting where we've said if there's going to be any major sort of deviation, all of us, would be involved, or all of us would be at least aware of that. And the micro things that come, follow-on goals, personal stuff, I don't think all of these need to ever be brought to the sponsor.
Yeah, absolutely, spot on. Because the word is establishes an agreement, right?
Yeah.
And this word establishing implies a how. How do we want to do this? Yeah, it's not like anybody telling another or suggesting or giving some advice on what to work on, but it's a how. How do we all want to partner in the way we do this?
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question or
I think there are a couple of questions that have come in the chat box, Cindy. I think there's one question from Neha, which is corporate coaching sometimes is more what than the who. How do we move to the who? That's your favorite topic, Cindy. So please take that.
Most of the time, the client has a what that they're working on or they want to achieve, and like a desired outcome. It could be personal or it could be professional. Yeah, so the client has some kind of a what. And there may be something going on with that what, that either they're not achieving it as per what they would like or how they would like. So there's some kind of issue or struggle or something going on. That's when the who of how this client is managing, coping, working with the what's begin to emerge. And a lot of times when the client comes to the session, what we hear is the woe of the client, meaning they're talking about their struggles or the issues or the emotions or how they're not achieving something they really want to. And we help them again gain the initial clarity they had on their what's. So this who and this what is a very integrated space. Mostly for the purpose of learning and coaching, we do 2 distinguished identifiers. We talk about the who and the what, and it helps us as coaches also begin to notice the point that Vijay was making. This person, this client, this who has all the answers they want inside them. And it is how we coach them that the clarity or their desired outcomes would begin to emerge again. So this who and this what is quite a integrated space. I'll give you an example so you'll see what I mean. Like somebody who got retrenched, yeah, that's their what's. And their initial thoughts would be around their finances and what next. How will they get another job? I've worked for 20 years in the one company. How am I going to prepare for an interview? I've never have been to an interview before, except for this one company. All their what's will begin to emerge. But a few days will start to go by and things will become compounded, like the worry, the anxiety of, so the worry and the anxiety of going for an interview will become more highlighted than the actual the interview. And the stress around finances will become more highlighted than the actual first day, okay, this is how I'm going to manage my finances until I get a job. All the woes of the client now will become more highlighted around their initial what's. So now we can't really separate here, right? Because as the days went by, the who and the what here is merged into one. But we as coaches, of course, we know the process of coaching, and we can help our clients really dive into that, help them build on that. And again, it's a very slow, gentle process. We got to be patient here.
That's a lovely example, Cindy, and as real as it can get. Any difficult or challenging kind of what's typically show up this way. Yeah. And then, of course, there are clients who seem to have, absolutely no problems, right? No challenges. They're totally sorted. And it's a very different experience to work with people there because it's a different kind of who that emerges, right? It's a lot tapping into future potential, future possibilities. It's not so much about the here and now. So I mean, and again, this is a very simplistic way to look at it, but I'm just telling you the way I view this, because otherwise it can get coaching itself, right? The number of themes, the sub themes, etc., can get a little overwhelming. So the way I kind of have it in my head is typically themes or topics or the reason people walk into coaching touches upon their work, their life, and the world around them. Most topics, most themes will fall into one of these three. And each of these require a very, I would say, a very different approach. Always, of course, led by the client. So typically, I think by, second or third session, as a coach, I would just have a feel, this is a very work-centered engagement. This is a very life-centered engagement, or this is a very the world around me is kind of engagement. It doesn't matter whether it's executive coaching, leadership coaching, life coaching, wellness coaching, anything, right? It kind of falls within these three loosely. So it becomes easier for me to start making sense of it. The other thing that I want to give, and, three circles that I kind of try to understand every client's journey, the engagement from, if you ask me, that the 1 year or the 10 months or whatever time you're working with a client, typically the engagement, the themes, the work of coaching, if I may put it, right, focuses or, shines the light on the coach's doing, which is typically a lot of what. And some clients are absolutely okay to stay there, and they just want to ace that. They just want to get it right. So usually a lot of performance coaching falls there. Yeah, the kind of stuff that doesn't go really too deep, but goes broad, but, is very focused on getting the results, showing all of that. The other one is the being of the client, which, squarely and beautifully falls on the who, because you're really, really getting into the person, irrespective of what the presenting issue or the theme is. And then there's another, which is the becoming. Right? So it's not about the here and now. It's not a doing theme. It's not a doing topic. It's not even a being thing, right? Trying to figure myself out. But it's about saying, where do I want to go? Who do I really want to become? What is it that, my future is going to look like? So if we understand and make some sense of this, without, of course, boxing in any client. I think it just enables us to hit the ground running much faster and, enabling the right kind of results that the client wants.
Hmm. And Vijay, sometimes when the client comes to the session, you may have lots of experience of this. They would start immediately with something like, I am so overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, okay, then they begin to tell you all the pieces around this overwhelm, like their emotions, and I can't sleep, or I'm struggling socializing with friends. I find myself sitting alone at home many times, and I'm so overwhelmed. And it actually takes so much of listening to the overwhelm before you can actually get into, can you isolate, or what are some of the things making you feel overwhelmed right now, before you dive into the what's of that overwhelm.
Yeah. Yeah. We are clearing the cobwebs a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And and I think absolute patience is required with this one, because sometimes that can be done in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, right? Sometimes it can take the entire session.
Mm.
But if that's not done, the client's not really in a resourceful state to even move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And coaches, when we're saying have some patience, what we simply mean is also like be mindful not to ask the client too many times. It comes around, it'll look like you're hammering the client with, so what do you want from the session? What's your desired outcome for the session? What do you want as a takeaway? Yeah, like the patience there would be to hear them out. They need to say some things in order for the clarity of what they want to work on or the desired outcome to emerge.
So I want to just pause a little here and ask everybody, and we need your help here. What are some of the challenges that you have experienced as a coach with the kind of topics or the kind of what's that clients bring to sessions? So I saw Ajit write something in the beginning, and I'm not sure whether that, I think that kind of connects to this. Client wants their problem to be solved, simple, and most times they actually don't know what the real problem is. So what would you do, Ajit, in such a situation?
Yeah, well, that's where the discovery starts really, right? To find out what exactly are they trying to solve. They have multiple problems that they'll mention, but somewhere they'll zero down on something like, oh, I have this problem with attrition. How do I fix it? And it could be, be referring to a bigger problem of the organization-wide issue, or something about performance management, which will require a systemic change as such, and not just a one-person problem. But many times I've seen some leaders, they would want to fix the organization-wide issue and not an issue with themselves many times.
Yeah. Also, to talk to that same point you're making, Ajit, a lot of times when clients come and they tell us all this, the narrative,
Yeah.
it can be quite a lot. Yeah.
Yes.
Most of the time, they know they're in a coaching session, they know it's a safe space, and they need to tell their coach everything. They just need to tell their coach everything,
Right.
just in case they miss something out that is vital. And such clients, we can also reassure them. We've got enough sessions. We are definitely going to unpack everything that's significant or important for you. And just to give you the best results that you're looking for, how would you break it down today to work on something that can become more manageable for you to manage progress on and, see some results?
Yeah. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. Thank you, Vijay.
I think that's a very good theme that you've brought in, Ajit, that, there's a lot going on, and let's be practical. Yeah. Most coaching engagements, we are talking about 10, 12 hours of work together. Yeah. You do a 2x, 25 hours. Is it really, really possible to resolve or accomplish everything that the client wants in a lifetime in that? I don't think so. And I think it's important to acknowledge that the limitations of the limitations of us as coaches in a very respectful way, and always go back to choice. What's most important? What's the best place to start? These are questions of choice that we always offer, even if the client is chosen at the start of the program. Because at every point they do have a choice, and they must understand, this whole thing about coaching, enabling people to be more resourceful is all about this. It's about making choices. In any stage of life, we always have different choices. Most times when we're overwhelmed, we think there's only one choice. So I think the coaching program and, whatever happens beyond of the topic is also about, creating or offering a world and a landscape where clients can really show up in a different kind of way, because it's safe. It's okay to make those mistakes. As a coach, you're not judging. So in a way, this is like the green room before you get onto stage. So a lot of my clients, for example, before crucial conversations, right? An important interview, a difficult conversation with a subordinate, a difficult conversation with a partner, use the coaching space additionally to also, practice in some ways. And that's okay, because that is the issue that's most important. Yeah.
Is it okay to go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like what you said about those common themes, work life, world around them. And I'm curious to know about the world around them. When you have a client who has a lot of issues with the world around them, I'll give you a specific example. This person is dealing with subordinates who don't take ownership and is constantly struggling with the level of quality that subordinates are bringing out. So we're dealing with this, and I just want you to please weigh in on this a little bit. The world around them, when they see, because typically I believe that it starts with you. So this aspect of the world around them being this major challenge, I've been brought in to manage this team, and this levels are just too low. How do I cope with accepting, in the client's words, rubbish? So I'm curious to know your thoughts. Yeah.
I would, I think, invite the client to really make meaning of whatever they're going through in whatever way, right? Even with limited capacity, understanding, etc. And it's very important, because sometimes, and I found clients actually amaze me and themselves. When you think all is lost, they still manage to find a silver lining. So I think making that meaning becomes important. and then layering it with choice. Because then the ownership goes there, right? I mean, you always have a choice to walk out of that situation. And recently that happened with one client who, and I didn't want to do that, right? I mean, I felt it a bit uncomfortable that the conversation was sponsor engagement. And the conversation I could just sense was going towards, the last sort of thing left was, I'm quitting. I'm out. Then all of this is over, right? And then I realized it's not my responsibility as a coach. And I know I'm taking a huge risk saying this on a public forum, but I want to. It's not my responsibility as a coach that clients who come for coaching go out engaged and ready to do magical things for the company. No, if that's an outcome of coaching, fantastic. I'm not going to take credit for it. But if it doesn't go that way and it's best for them and for the organization to part ways, then so be it. And I realized that I should not be feeling uncomfortable about it. Yeah. So it's really important that we don't get into, the messy middle and kind of allow the client to make meaning of what's going on.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I was recently coaching Vijay and thought, as the client raised the topic first few minutes, and not always a topic where I find myself showing up in my best. So I'm listening, but also my own coming in. I'm thinking to myself, oh God, this topic is going to kill me, right? I'm thinking to myself, and it was, when one thought goes into the next and into the next and into the next, and I thought, oh gosh, now I'm going below my own iceberg. How on earth am I going to help this client unpack all theirs if I'm going into my own? Now, both of us equally would need some other coach to come in and coach us. But it helped me very quickly to ground myself into not to go too much into your own. When a client is there and we are here in service of the client. Now, it doesn't mean those moments won't happen. They would. But even in those moments, just take a breath, ask yourself, how can I just ground myself and remain here in service of the client?
Thank you, Cindy. And I think, one big takeaway here is about recognizing that there are always choices and you don't have to make those choices. It doesn't have to rest with you. The client has to decide what, having made meaning of it, having identified what's the learning in it, how they want to approach this, it really is up to them. So, we take that guilt off ourselves if they decide to make a choice that is not in alignment with the client.
Just think about it. Sorry, Adwana, I spoke over you. Just think about it. The very essence of coaching is facilitate client growth. How do we help clients from point A to point B, where they are, where they want to go, facilitate clients' growth? It's core competency 8, embedded in core competency 8. And in that definition is the language of client autonomy, client choice.
That's a lovely and very, very practical question that you've raised, because it happens. And I find a lot of this happening in the post-pandemic world, right? A general sense of overwhelm is always there, and helplessness. And what makes us human is that we also go through it. Yeah. And sometimes we wouldn't have answers ourselves. So it just kind of makes us more human. And I think that's the way coaches should be as well. Cindy, I saw something from Nikhil, and Nikhil, would you want to talk about that? This pointed asks for specific advice and guidance, because this is a topic that I think 1 in 2 clients would expect, because there is, not enough appreciation and understanding of what coaching is, what the boundaries are, how it's different from other interventions and things like that. But would you want to talk about that, Nikhil?
Thank you for the invitation, Vijay, and please excuse me, I'm not able to come on camera right now. I also qualified that saying that that piece I still find ways to handle, but when a client in the contracting phase has understood the difference and
Yeah.
is a mature user of coaching, and still in session sometimes preambles it saying, I know that in coaching normally this doesn't happen, but I really would value your input on this, especially when it's from somebody who's I have domain knowledge in. That's the piece that I sometimes find more difficult to navigate. So I was keen to hear any tips or ideas on how to do that.
Yeah. Great sharing, Nikhil. And that's very true, because knowing and doing are very different things, right? And your intent is to honor that, but still beyond that. So I remember years back, Cindy introduced me to the concept of the mentoring moment. And Cindy can talk about that. But that apart, this is real, whatever you're saying, right? Because they know, and it's not as if they can't go to other people, right? Other sources. But I'll tell you why they still come back to you. It's only because that they trust you implicitly, and you've already built that trust. They trust you so much that you're not even going to take them back to the contract and say, but don't you remember we discussed all this, and they know even if that's there, you would handle it in a certain kind of way. So I think that's where it's coming from. Not most people don't do it because they dishonor the contract, or they've forgotten about it or something, right? They know it, and they still take that chance. They still trust you enough to ask you. So what I usually do in such circumstances is I find ways to tap back into the intelligence of the client. And there are some clients who are fantastic at even that, and they would just tell you point blank. So sometimes, I have given time after the session. I have given time in a different context. We've spoken. And I call these very clearly non-coaching conversations. And I say that, right? We can chat. We can talk about this. We can brainstorm on this. And I'm happy to do that, as long as I know I'm not doing this in my capacity as a coach. And even when I do that, I do play a more passive role in some ways. I still, like we discussed choice, I still offer that choice. I still give options. I still sort of say this is one way, but these are ways through which others have done. And those are diametrically opposite ways. So it's still the client who has to go back, think about it, apply, pick it up, etc. So sometimes I do that.
Thank you, Vijay. That's helpful.
Yeah. I had a piece there. Look, there's the one thing coaches shouldn't do, because it'll put the client off, unless it's the circumstances for why you're doing it. Like at that moment when client says, can you share that with me, or can you give me some advice on that? Referring them to the initial contract and in telling them in coaching we don't give advice, what, just puts the client off.
Yeah.
No two ways about that. If somebody told me that, I would go, seriously, we'll think about firing you as my coach. It's an off moment. Find another way to still cultivate trust, keep your trust, and answer that question. Now, I also want to say this, in the spirit of evoking awareness. I don't want to say the wrong words or say it in my own way, but look at that definition of evokes awareness. It is inclusive of tools and techniques like silence or metaphors or whatever. How would we engage with that in a way that will still honor the coaching space of asking and inquiring? And here's a tip. If you're doing that with the client, then do it in a way, like if you're sharing with the client, do it in a way that opens an invitation into, how does that sit with you? How does that resonate with you? What in what I've said will work for you? Or is that triggering of some insight for you? And then continue coaching. When coach shares something, we raise this question, why is coach sharing? Coach is sharing for the client's learning and progress. As long as you know that whatever you're adding to the conversation is for the client's learning and progress, and you check that in, meaning you ask some questions around that, then it's okay. We're still in the process of coaching. Vijay, you want to add something there?
No, I think you've put it very nicely, Cindy. And I think that's where our maturity as coaches come in. Let's remember this is a very human relationship. So we should never forget that while, we know our role as coaches, right? We have an ethics, we have all of that stuff that keeps us, we have mentors, supervisors, everything, right? We have all of that keeps us in check, knowing what to do, what not. But our client doesn't know any of this.
Yeah.
So how do you still, I think it's always a delicate balance between honoring yourself, the profession, and the client. And taking that triangulated approach often, I think, has allowed me as a coach to find creative ways to still stay within my boundary, but do it in a way that I think honors the profession and honors the client. And I want to just build on this. I'm aware of time. Cindy, and I want to ask you this, and maybe I can share after, right? And I think Nikhil's touched upon something important, which is client expectations and, what they really want from coaching. I want to build on that and really ask saying, who do they expect their coach to be? Basis all the clients that you've worked with. And I would love for everybody here today, to whatever extent you've been coaching, based on your experiences, to put down in the chat box. If you were to put yourself in the shoes of the various clients that you worked with, who do they want you to be as a coach? How do they want you to show up? Now, we have competencies that tell us how we are supposed to show up. But if you were hiring a coach and, you were paying for it, what would you really want for this human being or machine, if it's going to be an AI coach, to do for you? What qualities would be precious and non-negotiable?
Yeah, that's a lovely question. Go for it. Coaches, what do you want from your coach? And you, in your role of client, what do you want from a coach?
And who do you want your coach to be for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, coach should be able to relate to my problems. Oh, nice. I asked this question as a part of my chemistry. I would want my coach to be my thinking partner.
Yeah.
Equal partner.
Hmm.
A guide who comes to the scene when needed. A visionary leader. Okay. Non-judgmental, a mirror. Challenging me in a kind way. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, I like the challenging part.
Honest and
That
available when I need.
thought-provoking, right? That challenge talks to the definition of coaching.
Yeah.
Thought-provoking, yeah. What do you want, Vijay? If you're looking for a coach, what do you want?
Okay. I want to build on what Nikhil said. The first word that comes to me, and I'll talk qualities, right? If I had a choice, who would I pick? And I'm not going to bring in things like the usual stuff, right? Credentials, all that, right? I'm not going to talk about that. But if I really, and I also build on this based on what clients say, right? What they got and what they were disappointed with, what they cherished. I think honesty, I think is very important. Respectful honesty. Yeah. I definitely don't want my coach to play along with me. It's anyway confidential, right? So it's okay to hear that, hear what they're experiencing or what questions they want to ask, etc. So somebody who's honest,
authentic.
Yeah, authentic as well. Yeah. And somebody who I think somebody who really cares for me. Yeah, cares for me, my growth, my hopes, my crazy dreams. So I think honesty and caring and authenticity as well, I think these are very important. And one other thing is I want them to be relatable to me, right? I mean, I don't want them to be sitting on their high chair and sort of, giving knowing smiles that they figured it all out. And, these are, existential, trivial problems. It doesn't matter what topic I bring in. They really care. They're honest, but they also, don't make me feel small. And I go back to where I started, right? Like any of these, whether it's a teacher student, a coach client, a mentor mentee relationship, there is an inherent power imbalance. And coaches who can be mindful of that don't underplay themselves. Yeah, you don't have to act as if you're not an unequal partner, but keep it at that and maintain, because one slip and it's very easy for you to show up with a upper hand. We don't want that.
Absolutely. I recently said to a coach I was mentoring or listening to their performance evaluation, I said, Coach, are you aware you sound like you're presenting and standing on a podium and your client is sitting somewhere at the back of the hall?
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, even I thought so, Cindy, but I have no idea how to bridge that gap. So that's a good one, right? How to give ourselves times to look at our own who and how we show up as coaches. That's a lovely point, Vijay.
Yeah.
How do we show up as coaches in service of our clients? Adora, you came back up. Did you want to say something?
Thank you so much, Cindy, for that observation. Interestingly, I was talking to someone the other day. She's a coach, and she just made like what would I call it? Like this funny kind of laughter in the course of the conversation, like, and it came across almost condescending. And I thought, this is interesting. So just this piece you're talking about, regarding being relatable, but that awareness of ourselves, of our own emotions and our utterances, a simple laughter, but the way it came out, it just seemed so condescending and it was so off-putting. So I just remember that as you were both speaking, and I just thought that self-awareness piece is key.
And you've said something so beautiful. I just want to say that sometimes it's okay to make those mistakes, right? But I think it's important to realize it. And if it means apologizing, just apologize. I have found my most empowering moments when I've genuinely told the client that I wish I'd not said that, or, I wish I'd not done that, or, whatever it is. And that just empowers me. It brings back, because, you've messed up. So you need to find ways to catch yourself. It's okay to even make that mistake. You don't even have to catch yourself. And that could be through a trusted coach, friend, a colleague, a mentor, supervisor, your own self. It doesn't matter. But I think finding ways to reset is important. It's okay to make those mistakes.
Vijay, what about when the coach doesn't even know? What's the opportunity for the coach to check in with the client to say, was there a way I could have supported you better in the course of the session? I just wonder around that, because the coach wasn't aware.
Yeah.
The coach wasn't aware. Yeah.
But when you're doing that initial establishing agreements is not only on your goals and objectives that you're working on. Agreements is also on relationship. So relationship between coach and client. In that part, I openly encourage clients to also tell me when they think the question wasn't right for them or something wasn't right for them, and reword it or say what is going on for them. So we kind of have this more natural, authentic relationship as it's showing up in the moment. I think you're an equal partner. Coaching should be like this. We both are equal, not coach is more superior as more say in the coaching relationship. So feel free to tell the coach, I think, if you feel that something's not working. Again, in a open, respectful way.
And you know, that's in the session, and you know, opportunities there. But I think that's where, and you know, we can do like a separate conversation, you know, an entire session on this, my favorite topic. That's why, and that's the business case for reflective practice for coaches, right? Coaches who are not reflecting critically at themselves and their being could really be missing out real opportunities for growth. And, you know, it's not every time that you can have somebody listening to your recording, right? In the real coaching world, nobody's got to be listening to any recording of yours, but you still have to find ways to get yourself. And I think every session, there'll always be something that you feel that you can build on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we must raise that topic of introspection and reflections, both for coaches and clients. Because many coaches are coach and client, especially during peer coaching. We can't avoid that. It's happening.
Correct.
So might as well we show our best selves in both for coach and client.
Yeah.
We've reached the end of our webinar. Actually, a few minutes over. And coaches, you know, if this format is not working for you, let us also know. We go back to the original, to the other way of doing it on a webinar style. So we would also like your feedback on that. Please share it with us. Vijay, any rounding thoughts?
No, I think I'm good. I really like this. Personally, I like the format, the dialogue, the kind of questions. I really liked how everybody was very practical in, you know, this was not a theoretical kind of discussion. So I really enjoyed. Thank you for the opportunity, Cindy, Kucharya, and you know, to all participants here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Next time, we'd love to see all of you on video. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Brilliant. Thank you. Bye.